I'm talking to you about how epigenetic influence the origin of a disease. And I bring here some facts about how people have get disease and die in around the world. Now, all the disease that we will talk about, it's influenced by epigenetics, are known as non-communicable disease. Yes. So everybody here knows this disease as chronic disease. It's a disease that will take long time for duration. A result of a combination of even genetics, physiological, environment, and behavior factors. All of this last is epigenetic factors. This disease kills by year 40 million people each, and responsible for 70% for all deaths globally. Kill 15 million people between ages 30 and 70. Over 80% of these premature deaths occur in low and middle countries as ours. The main disease here is cardiovascular disease, account for the most deaths, and followed by cancer and respiratory disease. Diabetes, next. Some use of substances, abuse of alcohol, tobacco, and unhealthy diets increase the risk of dying with this disease. Economies are suffering considerable loss of disability to work resulting from heart disease, stroke, and diabetes. So we have more economic money about for the people. Detection, screening, and treatment are key components to respond by this. So, next. Epigenetics mechanism. Epigenetics, there is a strong scientific evidence to relationate all that disease in this disease. This is epigenetic disease. So the origin would be modifications of epigenetic markers happening in early stage of the pregnancy, affect the mother as malnutrition, and inherited marks from events with our ancestors. So, therefore, these concepts belongs to developed origins for health and disease, and about this I will talk about. Next. Dr. Miriam said about this influence, psychological state, social interactions, therapeutic drugs, microbiome, exercise, financial status, drug abuse, chemical toxic, disease exposure, climate, and diet. And all this, some of this might be beneficial for health or behavior, and others, like this interfere with the body and the mind, create an imbalance, which might manifest as disease or psychological disorder. Next. So, modification of all marks influenced by environment are composing, revealing, and recruiting our epigenome. There are several epigenetic mechanisms that will modulate our epigenome and give us our epiphenotype, as Dr. Mira said too. But here I will focus in diet, ancestor, pregnancy, and development of the gestation. As you know, the epigenome, the DNA methylation, it's the main mechanism to regulate mechanism of the epigenetic mechanism. And you know also that this influence directly by dietary compounds. So folic acid, folate, B12, vitamin 6, betaine, and choline collaborate in this cycle of methionine and methionine because of all methyl donor that for the methylation in your epigenome comes from this cycle. And this experiment have demonstrated how to diet influence our genes during gestation. And because this, here's the, because this, we have a lot of experiments to show how this nutrients modulated. This is ontological experience. The ask is about if chemical could lead to some biological damage, if DNA methylation would be involved, and if supplementation of these nutrients can blockade the action. These are two syngenic brothers, mice, because syngenic mice is imperative for these conditions. And all the mothers receive a normal mouse with bisphenol. Bisphenol is chemical that it's a polycarbonate compound the fabrication of glass and cups. And now, therefore, it's not so many use, and you are talk about the damage. This is without supplementation, and this with supplemented diet, with choline, acid folic, betaine, and vitamin 2. What does it reveal? This brother is obese, and the color its odor. This supplement blocked the action of methylation, of this action, the chemical action. And these studies reveal that when you use here, I can influence the pregnancy microenvironment, and therefore the sum. So here we can see equally genetically but epigenetically different and imbalance for diet. Dr. Baker's postulated this, and in the last of the last century. He was a British epidemiologist. He showed that in a historical cohort study, an expected statistical curve and a relaxation, hypertension, coronary heart disease, and non-insulin-dependent diabetes in middle age with intrauterine growth retardation, low birth weight, and premature births. So something happened here in the past make a difference for this person in the future. He called here the drift phenotype, means that some gene wake up early inside during the pregnancy to ensure the survival of the embryo, leading to anticipated illness in younger linger. He was criticized because not support evidence from low-income countries that this is happening a lot, but it's no. And I show you that he was right. Dr. Baker invited us to see what happened before our birthing. And the Holland people were the first to show us something very important. During the Second War, the last months in Holland was very difficult for them. and the starvations affliged that population. Holland was under Nazi occupation, and at that time the starvation affliged even the pregnant woman. And people were so famine that they included the tulip bulbs to survive, very precious for that people. In 6 months, 3,000 Dutch have died. And what's amazing, because it happened in a rich country. You all of here knows about this in a poor country, but first time in a rich country. After 60 years, research compare the degree of methylation of this gene. EGF2, it's very important for gestation, growth, development, and metabolism. And compare people conceived during winter, that was named, with their brother and sister, was born at that time. The results showed that people conceived in the early stage, 10 weeks of pregnancy, was associated with 10% increase in mortality, die more. And there was a mark, epigenetic mark, with hypomethylation, the promoter of this gene. Did not apply for their brother in late stage of gestation or family occur after. So now indicators, these studies indicate that epigenetic information is particularly vulnerable in the early stage of pregnancy, and henceforth you'd need to know and ask about an ancestor. Of course, everybody here asks about the ancestor, but here you can connect this question with scientific evidence. Next. So, deprivation in the world for the climate, it's not new. It's well known all around the world. There's in the Bible this history about the Pharaoh and his dream with 7 fat and 7 lean cows in this sequence. The dream was interpreted by Joseph, that one was sold by his brothers. And Joseph warned out about that 7 years of plenty followed by 7 years of penury. And the stock of the year of plenty could sustain the years of penury. This image illustrates how our genes are programmed. We take time to adapt to environment influence and would not be longer as Darwin has predicted. Faster, maybe 3 generations, 100 years. And they would be epigenetic mechanism to astonish of geneticists. What I'm telling you happened in Lapland, in Sweden. Next. In Lapland, in this small city, the land of Santa Claus and the North Pole, there was very well documented years of plenty and years of penury, and good harvest and bad harvest, full food, so poor in food. And there was a pastor, a priest in this city that wrote down comments about the good years and the bad years, because the appearance of the people have changed at that time. Did you know? But the priest, he was epidemiologist. And after 100 years later, the Sweden people back for these manuscripts and ask, what happened with the grandsons from these people who passed about this condition? And you have really good news about how the epigenetic influence increase health. These grandsons, when grandpapa exposed to starvation as pre-adolescent, before 12 years old, the grandsons gain longevity. It does not happen with after the pre-adolescent. And yes, these conditions, it's all for male, because the female, the women, it was worse to them, because the granddaughters of women from uterine sclerosis at that time died early. So in Dutch, we see people get disease early. And here we can see the disease, the condition, increase longevity, health. Now you are looking not for the epigenome of the patients, but which chromosomes come. We are called here about epigenetic inheritance, that condition. I'll put here for you the paternal perspective. Recent studies indicate that epigenetic marks acquired during the first 3 months will be remained to the current gestation or decades or centuries later. This phenomenon, called as intergenerational or multigenerational inheritance, can finish it just for here and the F2. Can the markers remain in the cell germ but finish, or it's for the center, as we can see in the Sweden people. We are discussing about the origin of disease nowadays. Dr. Rachel Yehuda knows this. She is a psychiatrist from Memorial in New York, and she specialized in stress post-traumatic disorder. She has studied this condition, psychological disease, condition in victims from the Holocaust. And she could perceive that people that fate to live to survive from the Nazi camp, much more stress, psychological stress than other that escape from this fate. He compares their relatives, and she observed in this gene of the promoter of the gene of the enzyme that breaks down the cortisol, hypomethylation of this generation. So the people has in camping Nazi gain something acute to survive, and their relatives know. And the last year, she can demonstrate association of preconception, parental trauma with epigenetic alteration that is evident in both exposed parent and offspring, provide potential insight into how severe psychophysiological trauma can have intergenerational effects. So, not just disease in your body, but disease in your mind. There are 3 epigenetic moments for changing this mark. As you know before, here during the meiosis after cell cycle, you have a razor and new epigenetic marks appears. And because of this, we have not twins in different days. Next time is during the fertilization, when for the new human being, there is a tsunami of the methylation, and after a wave of new epigenetic marker in methylation. Here, as you know now, DMT3 and 3, the enzyme responsible for de novo methylation. And here, the for the irritable tissue specific, when the methylation, it's to ensure the differentiation and the maintenance of the tissue specific. So, no Gs, we can talk about not the origins of disease, my death risk. Epigenetic could be a mechanism which allows an individual to adapt rapidly in changing circumstances, as I showed before. Changing the DNA sequence occurs by chance, and it takes generations before a favorable mutation spread. We saw here in the last studies. And this condition look life for Sweden children. Or it could be that the metabolism of Dutch children has been set on a more economical level, driven by epigenetic changes for the first time, and to explain why they suffer more frequently from obesity and cardiovascular disease, as Baker postulated and well seen in Holland. Maturation of social, cognitive, and neurological development in the first 2 years, with the pregnancy called the window of opportunity today in area of health promotion, and this period is known as the 1,000 days. Disorder happening the first trimester of the pregnancy, or the last three months of the pregnancy have almost the same risk of this condition generate disease in the adulthood. So, nowadays, you have to accept that during pregnancy, early stage, there is the key moment, the gold window, to prevent and treat some factors that can be responsible for that disease in the future. More time spent here, less chance of regeneration and recovery. This challenge is complied by International Federation of Gynecology and Obstetrics, Pediatrics, and United Nations for the prevention and control of the chronic disease. We have to educate mothers about the risk of certain nutritional and environment exposure and integrate health promotion as agenda, as a part of social and economic development. Don't forget about this. 1,000 days means pregnancy and 2 years. And I will talk, not in the end, about the fourth opportunity. Recognize the epi marks by epigenomics and some that come to bioinformatics leader now, the next class. We have actor here in a new way of therapy using epipharmacos. My finished message for you is epigenetics has made a major contribution to the origin of disease and health. You are mitigating the present events of the past and bring us more responsibilities with our descendants and where we have lived. Its potential for reversibility is fantastic as a possibility of health. And the most important, epigenetics is a hope for everybody. Thank you.